The lights in the San Francisco Civic Auditorium were warm and dazzling. Cameramen buzzed, journalists whispered. Governor Gavin Newsom smiled calmly, waving to a crowd that had gathered for what was billed as a Global Partnership for Prosperity Summit. World leaders, CEOs, and decorated veterans filled the hall, but one seat remained empty until now. The doors opened. Ibrahim Traoré walked in. He wasn't flanked by a grand entourage. No special effects. Just a simple, proud African man in his signature military green. People clapped politely, unsure what to expect from the 36-year-old leader of Burkina Faso. After all, this was California. This was Newsom's stage. But as Traoré took the mic beside the governor, something changed. The room stilled. His eyes scanned the audience. And then, without raising his voice, without even blinking, he turned to Newsom and said, "You're just a puppet." The air left the room. The governor laughed nervously, trying to pivot. But Traoré didn't move. He wasn't joking. And millions watching live leaned closer to their screens. No one realized this would become the moment the world would never forget. The governor's smile twitched. His lips curled back, trying to maintain his calm. But his eyes were lost. He looked to his aides. Silence. The entire room had frozen, yet cameras kept rolling. Traoré turned slightly toward the audience, his voice steady. "For too long, leaders like you have smiled in front of cameras while your people suffer behind closed doors." The crowd gasped. A senator in the front row shifted uncomfortably. A veteran in uniform dropped his gaze. Newsom raised a hand, ready to interrupt. But Traoré didn't let him. "This isn't just about America. It's about Africa. About the people you ignore. About the hands that pull your strings while pretending to help us." In the back, a woman quietly started recording on her phone. Others followed. A hashtag was born before the event even ended. Not a puppet. Newsom, regaining composure, leaned into the mic. "Mr. Traoré, with all due respect, this is not the time nor the place." Traoré cut in. "Then when is the time, Governor? When the next child dies in a mine your companies exploit?" The room stopped breathing. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was a war of truth, live. There was a long pause. Then someone stood. An old man in uniform, with silver hair and shaky hands. His name was Sergeant Daniel Briggs, a decorated U.S. veteran who had fought in Afghanistan and later volunteered for humanitarian missions in West Africa. He stood up slowly. Everyone turned. He raised a trembling hand. "Let him speak." The tension in the room cracked. Like a dam under pressure, emotion started to rise. The cameras caught it all. The pain behind Briggs's eyes, the tear that had formed and refused to fall. "I've seen it. I've seen what they've done to his people, to those villages. And he's not lying." The silence turned to murmurs. Traoré stepped forward, softer now. "Do you know what it's like to bury a child whose only crime was living on land rich in gold, or lithium, or uranium?" Briggs nodded. "Yes, I do." A woman in the audience began crying quietly. A journalist lowered her camera, wiping her eyes. Even Newsom didn't speak. The moment was no longer political. It was personal, human, raw. And the world was only just beginning to see the truth. Traoré reached into his chest pocket and gently unfolded a worn, crumpled photograph. He held it up. The camera zoomed in. A little boy smiled in the photo, barefoot, standing next to a mud wall, holding a broken soccer ball. His eyes were bright, alive. This was Adama. He was 8 years old. The room held its breath. He died in a gold mine collapse last year, not because of a natural disaster, but because a foreign company, registered right here in California, refused to fix the safety system. It was cheaper to let the children work. Gasps. A woman sobbed. Governor Newsom stared, speechless. Traoré's voice broke for the first time. I buried him myself. He folded the picture gently and returned it to his pocket. You wear suits and sign trade deals. We bury children. You call it economics. I call it murder. The silence was unbearable. A journalist in the back whispered to another, This isn't just politics. This is real. And the live stream chat exploded. I'm crying. God help us. Who let this man speak? Give him the whole stage. Something had shifted. Forever. Governor Gavin Newsom cleared his throat and stepped forward, visibly shaken. Mr. Traoré, I had no idea. Traoré turned to him with the intensity of a man who has seen too much. You had every idea. Your staff knew. Your companies knew. They just didn't care. Newsom tried again. But Burkina Faso is a sovereign state. These companies act independently. Traoré raised his voice, not in anger, but grief. Independent? The CEO of Westcore Mining was in your office 3 months ago. He posted the photo. Your signature is on the trade deal. That photo flashed on the screen behind them. The governor looked stunned. His mouth opened, but no words came out. How can you shake hands with men who dig graves for children and call it growth? For the first time, a group of young people in the audience began clapping, slowly at first, then faster. Then others joined, veterans, mothers, students. Traoré wasn't attacking America. He was defending innocence, and people could feel it. You knew, Traoré whispered. You all knew. And the truth of it hung heavier than anything he had said so far. From the side aisle, a woman slowly stood, mid-40s, blonde hair tied back. She held her hospital ID around her neck. I wasn't going to speak, she said shakily, but I have to now. Traoré turned to her, his eyes softening. I'm Nurse Laura Bishop. I volunteered in Burkina Faso 2 summers ago with a medical nonprofit. She pulled out her phone and showed a photo, children lined up on a clinic floor, some with swollen faces, others barely breathing. These kids weren't sick, they were poisoned. Traoré nodded solemnly. Mercury runoff from illegal mines. She held back tears, and I saw trucks leaving those mines. American trucks. Your logos, your brands. She turned to the audience, to Governor Newsom. We always say we're helping, but we're hurting. We're helping ourselves. The room was in complete silence, broken only by sniffles. Even Newsom lowered his head. Traoré walked toward the nurse and gently took her hand. Thank you for telling the truth. The moment was unplanned, but it was beautiful, real. In the live stream comments, people were typing, I can't stop crying. This is the most honest thing I've seen all year. This man is a light in the darkness. And Ibrahim Traoré hadn't even said his final words yet. Governor Newsom sat back down, his hands clenched tightly. The room waited for his response, but all they got was silence. Behind closed doors, Newsom's mind raced. For years he had been caught between political pressure and the harsh realities Traoré was revealing. Lobbyists, donors, and powerful corporations tugged at his sleeves, but the stories shared today shattered his carefully built walls. Could he continue to ignore the human cost? He thought of his own children, safe in their homes, miles away from the mines and poverty Traoré spoke of. His pride battled with guilt. Newsom looked at Traoré. No longer an adversary, but a mirror reflecting uncomfortable truths. The crowd watched, sensing the weight of this silent moment. Something was breaking inside the governor, something that might change everything. After the official part of the summit ended, Traoré was led to a quiet room backstage. A young aide approached nervously. Sir, there are calls for a private meeting. Governor Newsom wants to speak with you. Traoré agreed. Behind closed doors, Newsom extended his hand. I want to help, he said quietly. You're right. We need to do better. Traoré studied him for a moment. Words are easy, but actions, they must be real. They must reach the people who suffer. Newsom nodded solemnly. I promise you, this is just the beginning. We will work together. It was an unlikely alliance, but it held hope. As Traoré left the room, he felt a rare emotion, cautious optimism. A few days later, a letter from a U.S. soldier stationed in Burkina Faso went viral. The soldier wrote about seeing children forced into labor, witnessing corruption, and feeling powerless. The letter echoed everything Traoré had said. Veterans across America shared it, demanding change. At a rally, Sergeant Daniel Briggs held the letter high. We fight for freedom abroad, but what about freedom for the people we're exploiting? Tears streamed down faces in the crowd. The movement grew. Traoré's words had sparked something bigger than any one man. Here are chapters 10 to 12, continuing the story's emotional intensity and deepening the suspense while maintaining realistic, heartfelt moments to keep your viewers glued to every word. Chapter 10. The Silent Streets of Ouagadougou. Back in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, life went on with a strange quiet. The people had heard about Traoré's confrontation in America. His words, broadcast live, traveled faster than any news before. In the crowded markets, mothers whispered his name with hope and pride. He spoke for us, a woman said, holding her sleeping child close. But beneath the hope was fear. Local businesses were already facing pressure from powerful interests who didn't want change. One night, Traoré walked through the city streets alone, thinking about the path ahead. He passed a mural painted by children, faces of miners, farmers, and students, all looking toward a bright sun. His heart ached for them. This fight isn't just for me, he whispered. It's for every soul buried in silence. Chapter 11. A child's voice changes everything. At a small school on the city's edge, 10-year-old Amina stood nervously in front of her classmates. She held a letter tightly in her hands, a letter she had written to Ibrahim Traoré. Dear Mr. Traoré, she read, voice trembling but clear. Thank you for telling the world about our home. We want to be free. Please don't stop. The teacher wiped away tears. That letter, carried by volunteers, reached Traoré the next day. He read it slowly, feeling the weight of every word. This is why I fight, he told his team. Not for power, for children like Amina. He posted a video holding the letter, promising to keep pushing until every child could dream freely. The video went viral. Chapter 12. Newsom faces backlash. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom's promises sparked fierce backlash back home. Powerful lobbyists called for him to step down. Critics accused him of being naive and weak. In a heated press conference, Newsom's voice cracked as he defended the new direction. I cannot ignore the truth any longer, he said. It's time we face the consequences of our actions and change for good. Supporters gathered outside the Capitol, chanting Traoré's name. Newsom's courage sparked a fragile hope in America, hope that maybe the system could change. But the battle was far from over. Would you like me to continue with chapters 13 to 15? Deep underground in a gold mine outside Ouagadougou, men worked in dangerous silence. Most were barely teenagers, their hands raw and trembling. One boy, Musa, paused and looked toward a narrow beam of sunlight filtering from above. It was the only light in the darkness. He thought about Traoré's words, the leader who dared to speak for them, who saw them. Musa had lost 2 friends in the past month to collapses. We want to live, he whispered to himself. Outside, Traoré's team was already planning ways to bring safer working conditions. The fight was no longer political, it was a fight for life. One evening, as the sun set over Ouagadougou, a call came through to Traoré. A protest had erupted near the mines. Families demanded answers. Traoré arrived to see crowds holding candles and photos of lost loved ones. A young mother, eyes red from crying, stepped forward. "My son died because no one cared," she said, voice breaking. "Thank you for being our voice." Traoré knelt beside her, tears filling his eyes. The crowd sang songs of hope and resistance. The world watched live as a movement was born, not just words, but a call for justice. Back in California, Newsom faced a choice. Powerful interests demanded silence. Friends whispered warnings. But after meeting with Traoré and hearing stories from veterans and nurses, Newsom made a bold decision. He announced a new task force to investigate foreign companies exploiting Burkina Faso's resources. The announcement sent shockwaves through political circles. Some called it reckless, others revolutionary. For Newsom, it was a step toward redemption. For Traoré, it was a sign that the world might finally listen. A surprising phone call came one rainy afternoon. It was from a former corporate executive, someone who had once worked for one of the mining companies Traoré exposed. She confessed she could no longer stay silent. "I've seen the suffering firsthand," she said quietly. "I want to help. How can I make this right?" Traoré felt a mix of hope and caution. Could real change come from within the system? Together they planned a whistleblower campaign to reveal hidden documents proving the exploitation. The news spread like wildfire. For the first time, people saw the faces behind the profits and the pain. As the revelations unfolded, protests erupted globally. From California to Paris, from Accra to New York, people took to the streets demanding justice for Burkina Faso. Social media flooded with hashtags like "Tro, not a puppet," and "Freedom for Burkina Faso." In homes and cafes, strangers shared stories, tears, and hopes. Even Governor Newsom spoke at the United Nations, calling for international cooperation. "We must listen to the voices once silenced," he said. And through it all, Traoré stood tall, not just as a leader, but as a symbol of courage. On a quiet morning, Traoré stood before a small crowd in Ouagadougou. Children played nearby, their laughter like music. He looked out at the faces, worn, hopeful, alive. "Today, we are not puppets," he said softly. "We are free men and women choosing our own destiny." Tears filled eyes in the crowd. This was more than a speech, it was a promise. The fight was far from over, but the seed of change was planted deep. And as the sun rose over Burkina Faso, a new chapter began. If Traoré's courage moved you, show it now. Like this video to honor those who speak truth to power. Comment below. Tell us what this story made you feel. Was he right? What does freedom mean to you? Subscribe and join us for more stories that challenge the system and inspire real change. Together we are stronger. Together we are heard.